Hello, this is the lecture for Chapter 15, Transitioning from School to Employment. It may be a different chapter in your book depending what edition you purchased. Introduction. History of transition. So it has ranged from the 1960s to cooperative work-study programs to 1970s career education, and then from the 1980s to the 1990s the emphasis on transition emerges. So the history of employment for persons with severe disabilities ranges from sheltered workshops in the 1970s to supported employment models in the 80s, and then self-employment and customized employment in the 1990s to present. So Madeline Will has the transition bridges model. Transition includes high school graduation, post-secondary education, or adult services and initial years of employment. Halpern, a revised transition model, expanded the bridges model, suggested that transition included post-school employment, quality life, and community adjustment. In IDEA 1990, first school-related mandate to recognize transition services for students with disabilities. Mandated IEPs include transition component to begin no later than age 16. IDEA 1997, focus shifted from the educational process to an outcome-oriented process for students with disabilities in discussing transition services. And IDEA 2004 focused on aligning students' educational programs to meet their post-secondary life in education, employment, and independent living. Indicator 13 provides teachers and schools with guidelines for writing IEPs that meet federal requirements and help facilitate the transition planning process to meet the secondary transition needs of students with disabilities. So age-appropriate transition assessment, which is both formal and informal assessment. It's person-centered planning, and it involves the self-determination and student involved in the IEP process. Student involvement in the IEP process. Okay. So teaching employment skills, where to provide instruction. That's a classic discussion of whether it's a school-based or community-based instruction that would be most authentic and useful for students with severe disabilities. Both occurring in parallel is awesome. School-based instruction options, career technical education, school-based enterprises, so on-campus jobs in clubs, or another vocational student organizations, so like Future Healthcare Workers of America, etc., etc. The Department of Labor considerations, some would be that schools must follow the Fair Labor Standards Act and for all students who may be employed. Students must ensure program participants are treated in a fair and equitable way that prevent the sanction of fines by the DOL. So teaching employment skills and community-based instruction options are 6 types. Job shadowing, internships, apprenticeships, volunteerism, mobile work groups or enclaves, and paid competitive employment. Some staffing consideration is the use of teacher assistants as job coaches, integrating therapeutic support personnel, team teaching, and training paraprofessionals as appropriate. Some transportation considerations for these community-based instruction options are, funding to get them back and forth, appropriately licensed staff to operate school vehicles, knowledge of when and what transportation is available, and then of course public transportation. Safety considerations, fully inform parents and students about the training components of a program, types of community-based settings offered, and the expectations during CBI. Ask parents to provide students medical information. Students and staff should wear ID tags and carry cell phones. Train students on work safety prior to a CBI option. Insurance coverage should be considered as well. So medical insurance coverage for the students, liability for staff, and as well as Fair Labor Standards Act considerations. So adhering to child labor laws. So how to provide instruction. You can do whole task chaining, a million kinds of chaining, constant time delay, self-instruction, etc. How to use instructional data, task analysis, using assistive technology, and we also need to make sure that you meet medical and health care needs. Adult outcomes and meaningful employment outcomes. So supported employment, So you have the individual placement model where you work one-on-one with a student in like a job coach and integrated setting, or it can be like a small business model where a group of individuals with disabilities operate a small business within a community. Mobile work crew model, groups of individuals with disabilities who move from job to site to perform job-related tasks, or an enclave model where a group of individuals with disabilities work at one integrated job site and perform a variety of job-related tasks under the supervision of a job coach. So, with that said, there's natural support, so supports from supervisors, coworkers, in forms of friendships, mentoring, socializing, etc., to provide feedback to the individual on their job performance or in learning a new skill. But there's also customized employment, so individualizing the relationship between the job and the employers to meet the needs of both. This requires the determination of the strengths and weaknesses of the individual and the interests of the individual with a complex life. Okay. Family roles and transition. The importance of family involvement can't be understated. They definitely contribute to planning process. Strategies to promote family involvement, prepare elementary teachers to talk, even at the elementary level, to talk with families about transition and employment, provide training opportunities for parents, keep parents informed, avoid the use of jargon they may not understand or be familiar with, be considerate and sensitive to cultural diversity, and establish a network of support for parents who are similarly situated. Interagency collaboration, you have vocational rehabilitation services, developmental disability services, and then of course at the Social Security Administration. So, and there's several programs within that: plan for achieving self-support, impairment-related work expenses, and student earned income exclusions. And then also you should look at one-stop career centers that, help students find out what kind of career they would like to be guided to. Okay, well thank you, and that is chapter 15.